Welcome to the Fantasy Formula 1 podcast. I'm Paul. That's Ben.
Hey.
And we are actually today going to be using fake money to buy real teams to win imaginary points. The reason why I'm saying that with a little bit of more zest is because this episode is all about tactics and strategy in Fantasy Formula 1, because I have come up with a play, a maneuver, a stack, a strategy, a two-game strategy of how to move your players around to get maximum out of 2 races.
And you know what? And this is exactly why we're here. Because F1, and particularly fantasy F1, is fundamentally Darwinian. You have to adapt to survive. What worked last year will not work this year. And we thought that we had stumbled onto the best way to change from last year.
Mm-hmm.
And that worked for about 3 or 4 weeks. But guess what? Environment's changing again. And we have to adapt with it. Whatever defense mechanisms and whatever means of hunting that we'd figured out don't work anymore. And if we want to survive, we got to change the way we go about our week-to-week approach.
Absolutely.
And last week, after we got over all the craziness that was Canada, we started talking about some funky new strategy ideas, things that we hadn't considered before, that maybe involved straying away from Red Bull,
Mm-hmm.
maybe involved abandoning these stalwart benchmarks of kind of the livelihood here, and realizing that doesn't work anymore. Let's find something new. Let's get a little risky. Let's play with some fire.
A lot of drives from Sergio Perez. So
Yes,
at the start of the season and all of last season, you had your dynamite constructor, Red Bull. You had both of their drivers that were putting up points.
Yeah.
And at the start of the season, that was the way it was for Red Bull as well. If you have your lead driver, whoever wins gets 25 points, and then it drops off exponentially. Your first place in fantasy points is getting roughly the same points as the second two. Again, it's not right. If you get second and third, you get more points overall than first, right? Like, I get it. But as soon as you have now 3 teams competing for the top slots, you have Ferrari, you have McLaren, and you have Red Bull. Well, now as soon as you have your Red Bull team and Sergio Perez isn't necessarily in the top 3, and the points in the top 3 are getting split up around McLaren and Ferrari and Red Bull and Max. We're 8 races in. Max hasn't won 2 or 3 of the races. As soon as the balance isn't one team equals best, well, then you have to reevaluate it.
Yep. Yeah. As long as he is unyieldingly dominant, Sergio Perez doesn't need to be amazing for Red Bull to still be your powerhouse.
Correct.
Canada notwithstanding, Ferrari is a threat because they have 2 consistently solid drivers. McLaren is a threat because now they have 2 consistently solid drivers.
Yeah. This all has to do with fantasy playing. Right?
Yes.
This has to do with fantasy points. If you're on there and you want to be mad at us that Sergio Perez is a great driver and he's worthy of the 2-year extension that Red Bull gave him, I agree. He's second best last year. But in fantasy world, as soon as Max Verstappen is number 1, Sergio Perez is 5-3, maybe in the podium. As soon as Max Verstappen is anywhere outside of the number 1 spot, Sergio Perez is not beating him.
Yeah, and we'll jump back into this in just a second, but I got to break in here and and put my new guy hat back on, and just say with Formula One. Again, this is my first time tracking along week to week, and I've watched through all the Drive to Survive stuff. But I don't think it was until just this past week that I've truly realized just how much the mentality of this sport is. What have you done for me lately?
Ooh, yeah.
We have drivers that we hope do better. That that it feels like they get chance after chance after chance, or they switch to another constructor, and maybe they'll do great things here. Well, maybe they'll do great things here. Well, maybe if they just get a fresh environment, and some of that can carry on. But you look at Sergio Perez. Again, he was the number 2 driver last year. And now this year he's had 2 bad races in a row. And we're dumping on him.
On him. Yeah.
It's just wild how quickly the fall from grace can come. And and again, I think this is where your wife came to save the day with the perfect terminology for this discussion point, which is that prospect or suspect,
baby.
That it is such a razor thin line, where we have to interpret, was this disaster our driver's fault?
Yeah.
Was this disaster indicative of a major performance failure on the constructor's part? Or was this just the rain on a weird Sunday?
Yeah.
and because you're going to make major moves, you're going to completely restructure your team around your presumption that either your driver is failing or that you're going to stick with them even though they cost you this week.
And so that is a perfect segue into looking at my team. Normally we look at your teams.
Yeah, no,
we're going to be looking at my team.
We're getting a peek behind the curtain. If you are one of the few people who are actually following us, please follow and recommend to your friends and all the 5 stars. But if you are one of the faithful few here so far, we're getting a peek behind the curtain at Paul's team. So this is a fun week.
So if you look at my we'll do our best to paint word pictures, but this is actually going to be one you want to watch because we're going to be showing a screenshot of all the teams and all the magic we're going to be doing. If you look at my team, I have Max Verstappen on one team, but I am gone completely McLaren and completely Ferrari.
Yeah, I see that.
Constructors on all 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Woo.
Why? A couple things led to this, and this is going to lead into the actual big tactical discussion here. Why? Well, if you look at McLaren, over the last 3 races, Italy, Monaco, and Canada, they got 64, 56, and 57.
Yep.
160, 73, 77? 177 points? 4 plus 6.
177. Yeah, you were right.
177 over the last 3 races for McLaren. Then, and I have to make sure I can actually have to go to manage the team. Then you have to remove your team. And I guess you don't. Then come in here and find a constructor. Red Bull, over the last 3, 61, 8, 25. Which I'm no mathematician, but that's nowhere near 177. That's looking at, 69, 79, 89.
Sub 100 points.
Sub 100 points, right? 94.
And the scary thing is Canada is 25 points, and that's with Max winning that race.
With Max winning the race.
Yeah.
All right? And got it. Sergio Perez, got it. We're not going to belabor that point, but he got a DNF, and that sucks. But you have to look at the trends. And over the last 3 races, Red Bull as an entity, forget who's involved in it. If you look at Red Bull Racing as its own entity as a constructor, they're not putting up the points.
Right.
So how much longer will this go? Will Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez get 1-2 over the next 10 races and just crush it? It's possible.
Yeah.
But we can't gamble on that. You can gamble on it with a team if you want, a singular team. But I looked at this and looking at the past, I couldn't stay with Red Bull Racing as a constructor because they cost $28.8 million. And McLaren is as soon as your team does well, you go up.
Yep.
As soon as your team does poorly, you go down in value. So if I stay with Red Bull and they stay consistent in value, and McLaren keeps inking its way up in 2-3 races, I might be able to afford the constructors, but I will not be able to afford the drivers.
And so this is an interesting point right now that you just made about the value going down. This is where you find opportunity in the failure of your high profile drivers.
Mm-hmm.
This week specifically, leading into Spain. So whenever you're listening to this, if it's before the Spain race, this is only relevant to this week. Ferrari's $1 million cheaper.
Yep.
I'm sorry,
$500,000
cheaper than they historically have been because both of their drivers DNF'd last week. So Leclerc, good driver. Sainz, good driver. Their failure is our opportunity to get a high quality constructor and possibly high quality drivers on your team for significantly cheaper. So if you weren't a Ferrari person, you can grab Ferrari as a constructor, potentially Charles Leclerc, and maybe Carlos Sainz for a combined $1.5 million less this week than you would be able to get them at any other time. And I'm sorry, I'm probably jumping into the talking points down the road.
I'm looking as a segue. This is the perfect segue because I should have, if you listen to this podcast, you know, because of the previous season and early this season, I didn't trust Ferrari.
Sure.
Right? They broke my heart so much last year that I was like, I just can't do it. So I got on the Ferrari bandwagon a race or so late. This is maybe not. It's easy to look back and say, "Wow, I should have done this way." I goofed it up. I should have had Ferrari earlier. I'm not looking at this as you're absolutely right in what you said. Let me rephrase. I'm not looking at this as ... new sentence, new paragraph. You're absolutely right in what you said. We shouldn't look at this as we have a chance to get it. We should look at this as we have the last chance to get it.
Yeah.
Because if you want to have a team that is Ferrari or dominant, that you have both Ferrari drivers and the Ferrari constructor, there will not be a way. They're doing so well, and their value is going up so much that it will be impossible to have an all Ferrari team period going forward and have any sort of constructor that'll work well with it.
Yep.
There will be no way to do that. Starting as soon as they don't get a double DNF in Spain, their price will jump back up at least a half million each, probably $1 million as soon as Leclerc wins.
Yeah.
His price will jump up $1 million, and now you're $1.5 to $2 million out of the range of being able to do this. So that's what's driving this whole tactic conversation, because I'm looking at this and I'm like, all right, this is the last chance to get all Ferrari. Can you get, and I'm going to direct everybody's attention to the screen now, can you get all McLaren? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to play the game. First off, and this is what everybody can do, and feel free, I'm going to be kind of on a roll, so feel free to jump in anytime.
Oh, no, we'll do, yeah.
So if you delete all of your people without saving, don't save. If you delete all of your people, the value of this team is $111.6 million, which means the value of the team has gone up by $11.6 million.
Correct.
I checked, so I have a team that I purposely get into the negative every race. I want to keep them at the bottom so I know how many teams there actually are in the league, so that way I can do my stats accurately.
Okay. Oh, so did you zero out that team?
I zeroed out that team as well.
To see what your cumulative value is and what you're working with.
And they're in the 110 to 113 million.
Oh,
so
wow.
All the value, the field's value goes up.
Okay, so even if you have zero judgment and zero instincts for this game,
you can do this.
You have more money than you started with, which means this discussion is not out of reach for you.
Correct.
You can do this.
The only way you lose money with this is if you're, for example, right now, if I went heavy Ferrari last week and they down took $500,000, I'm like, well, no, forget Ferrari. I need to go back to Red Bull. I jump on Red Bull. They down tick $500,000. Ferrari upticks $500,000. Now I can't get them back.
Okay.
So if you stick with a team, everybody kind of goes up and down, relatively similarly. But yeah, so as soon as you are off of Ferrari is going to go back up in value, assuming we believe, and we'll get to that in a hot second, assuming we believe they're going to do better. You will not be able to afford Ferrari, because whoever you have, as soon as Ferrari does better, other teams are going to do worse.
Yep, I got you. So to summarize real quick, though, what we're trying to do right now is say, can we have a full team that includes both Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, and McLaren as a constructor?
Correct.
We're putting all our eggs in the orange basket.
Because McLaren's value is going to go up. Lando Norris's value went up $0.2 million last year. They're going to continue to go up. Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, maybe Sergio Perez, but Max Verstappen isn't really going up in value too much right now.
Right. And so the potential challenge here is you cannot staff a team with just the drivers that you want and then leave the other roster spots empty.
I wish you could.
You have to accept the potential liability that comes with those lower tier drivers, as well as working within your existing budget.
So we're going to go and try this. So we're going to go Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, and we're clicking around on the thing and on the website of the McLaren.
So you're going from 111 to you have 38 million remaining, and you still have to fill in a constructor and 3 drivers.
Yep. So we're going to go to the very bottom, go to the driver menu, click value, and scroll to the bottom.
So
right?
Why are we jumping back to drivers? Why not go constructor right now?
Because the most important thing you can do is have a solid constructor.
Yep.
You have to. We've talked about this before. Constructors bring in so many points for the good ones.
Yeah.
That you have to have a solid constructor. So we're going to get space fillers to minimum fill in the drivers, and then get as good a constructor as we can have, and then reevaluate it and take a look at it. This is a big massage time. Okay.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So, my countryman, Logan Sargent, love you, dude. You're on here.
Still an F1 driver, baby.
And he is a net 0. So right now, he's netting you 0 points, which is better than Alex Albon, which is better than other people. So technically, right now, you can buy Logan Sargent and hopefully just have him just be a wash.
Yeah.
Which, again, in this race, as you alluded to a minute, in Fantasy Formula 1, having a driver that is just going to not hurt you is wonderful.
Right.
Because if you range it by season points, you have Alex Albon is underneath Logan Sargent, and Daniel Ricciardo is at 8 points. Valtteri Bottas is at 19. Yep. So Daniel Ricciardo's at 8, and 40% more expensive than Logan Sargent.
So you pay high dollar prices for drivers that will get you points. You pay low dollar prices for drivers that you hope will not lose you anything.
Exactly.
Correct. So
back to value. And please feel free to comment, question. We do answer those, so please do that. Okay, so Logan Sargent, I say all that saved. We're going to be continuing kind of faster because I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, let's do it.
Logan Sargent, he's on the team. Joe Gonyu, 7.9 million. He's up $500,000 from last week. Why? Because he has 42 points.
Wow.
Right? So yeah, we're going to get him on our team. Even if we could pick other people, we'd still want him on our team. And then Valtteri Bottas has 19 points, and he's at 8.8 million. Nico Hulkenberg,
8.0.
Sorry, 8.0 million. And then Nico Hulkenberg has 8.8 million at 34 points. So Valtteri is still the cheapest. Every tenth of a million matters.
Yep.
So there we go. Now in this team we have 17 million left.
You know, we're playing with silly money when instead of saying $100,000, you just say, tenth of a million.
A tenth of a million. That's right. A tenth of a million. So then we go over to constructors. Who do we have? Aston Martin.
Aston Martin, which has 184 points on the year, which is
not bad.
You're in a weird gap because the next level up is Mercedes at 365 points.
Yep.
And then RB right below them. VCAR, but below them at 104 points.
Yeah. So you have your Ferraris. Sorry, your Mercedes at the step to the top. You have your VCARB and your Haas at the step to the bottom, and you have Aston Martin that's right there in the middle. So here is if you want a McLaren team, Norris, Piastri, McLaren Actual as a constructor, you have both of the Kick Sauber drivers, you have Logan Sargent, and you have Aston Martin. I have my opinion. What do you think about this team? Because we're gonna find this team that we want, and then I'm gonna explain why we're going into both drivers to the same constructor. Well, what do you think about this?
I like it because what I don't like about so right now I'm going to look at the liabilities first.
Yeah.
So Kick Sauber, I don't like them in general, but it's because of their constructor level performance issues. Generally, again, there are exceptions. Everyone has DNF at this point except for Oscar Piastri, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So understanding that everyone has DNF'd, generally Kick Sauber the problem with Kick Sauber is that they generally don't get points.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the worst thing that they do, I'm okay with that because this team is based entirely around your top two drivers.
Exactly.
So as long as they're not crashing, I don't care what they do. They could do donuts. They can and then come in last.
Yeah.
We
don't care.
Just don't crash.
Qualify last, finish last.
Yeah. And
we don't care.
Similarly, again, it goes against my instincts here just to look at Aston Martin and realize, well, they're not going to be a great performer. They're not going to be great, but they're going to still generally get you points.
Mm-hmm.
And so understanding now that I have McLaren, and they're on a hot streak.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
I'm excited for this. So the thing that I like about this build is that you have about Aston Martin is right now both of those drivers are swinging for the fences.
Yeah,
Lance Stroll's driving like his life depends on it, and Fernando Alonso's driving like he has nothing to lose. He's on his last deal for as he says, his career.
Right.
And he's just taken every alternate strategy. He's putting on softs when everyone's going mediums. He's putting on wets when everybody's going inners. Like he's just going for it.
Yeah,
that really wasn't him.
I'm gonna side note real quick. Did you see recently? Lance Stroll had a press conference and he talked about his future plans.
No,
where surprisingly he does not plan on moving from Aston Martin.
Oh, I'm shocked. I'm blown away.
But he's not confirmed for 25 yet. So
ooh.
I mean. He's gonna be there, but still,
but
right now, technically, the chair is vacant.
Right there we go. But then, so Aston Martin is right there in the middle. But if you've watched them before, and especially you don't want to bet against Fernando Alonso,
right?
They have a lot of money. So if you're looking for a gamble, so what I like about this build, we're gonna call it the McLaren build. What I love about this let me make sure I can't get somebody better than Logan Sargent. Love you, bud. My countryman.
You still have 7. Okay, you have no. You can't.
I can't. I think we're out. Let me go value down.
Logan is 5.9 million. Everyone else is at least 7.9 million.
So what we can do is we can add Logan, and we can get rid of Valtteri, and we can get on up to get Yuki Tsunoda.
Oh, that's great.
There we go. We'll do it that way.
Okay, and Yuki's got 47 points.
And Yuki's a strong V-Carb player. So here is our. We have all of McLaren. We have Sargent, Joe Gonyu, Yuki Tsunoda, and Aston Martin.
That makes me feel a little bit better.
It does.
But what I don't like about it is if McLaren has a Ferrari in Canada week, this team is not going to do anything
You're
for
gonna
you.
get you're gonna go negative
and that's what I liked about kind of the old ways of Red Bull and Ferrari.
Yeah.
Generally, if Ferrari had a bad day, you've still got
Red Bull.
Max Verstappen doing his thing. If Red Bull goes out, you've got Ferrari. You're going to get you're going to generally get some points out of that week.
Mm-hmm.
This is not that, but if you hit,
you hit
oh,
big.
yeah, exactly. And it's not crazy to think that you're going to hit big with this team.
Yeah.
You
know,
know?
it's they're doing better. Oscar Piastri is still the weaker of the two.
Yeah.
But if you look at him, he's a solid. In Spain he came in. Sorry, in Canada he came in 5th. In Monaco he came in 2nd. In Italy he came in 4th.
Yeah.
So he's top 6 consistently, and his value is doing nothing but going up. So here we have this great team, and the reason why you would do this, get this team, and the reason why what's spawning all this, and we're going to have the two teams. Actually, we're going to go for both teams. We're going to have a McLaren build, and we're getting to the Ferrari build, and then I'll talk about the strategy as to why we're even having this conversation.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
So here's the McLaren build. Where's my phone? I'm going to take a screenshot of it just so I can recreate it. And without and there's that. And okay, cool. So now let's think. We're not going to go all in McLaren. Let's try going all in on Red Bull.
Yeah.
And see where that goes. So we already established that those 3 guys are probably the best bottom drivers, right? Valtteri, Joe Ganyu, and Logan.
Well, so I'm excited to see what we're going to do here, just because right now Ferrari has dipped in value both across the constructor and both drivers, again, just for this week. And so I'm very interested to see what we will be able to afford from a constructor standpoint, and also from our remaining 3 drivers.
Yeah. So we're going to do Red Bull first. I might have misspoke. We're going to do Red Bull first.
Oh, okay.
Just because I want to drive this point home that we're kind of screwed. So there's Williams. All right. Okay. The best we can do is kick Sauber.
Yeah.
If you want to have an all Red Bull heavy, you can
do it.
Red Bull Racing, McLaren, and Sergio Perez. The best constructor you can get is kick Sauber.
Yeah.
All right. Especially since the reason we're talking about this is that Red Bull hasn't been producing.
Right.
So we're not going to discuss this build anymore. If you really, really, really want to, if you really, 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 truly think that Red Bull's just in a slump, give them another race or 2, that they'll pull it out. But I wouldn't, because I did a lot of digging over the last week to see who is expecting upgrades on the horizon.
Yep.
McLaren's bringing upgrades. Ferrari's bringing upgrades.
Mercedes
is bringing upgrades.
On the rise.
Red Bull's not.
Yep.
So we're going to not discuss this anymore. We're going to assume that the only valuable piece at Red Bull is Max Verstappen.
And let's just break for a moment here, because ultimately we're not even going to touch on this episode, but we've been talking all season long about how Mercedes is at least 2 years behind. I think that talking point is dead.
And it is. And actually, we're going to you're looking at a crystal ball, because we're bringing in Mercedes hardcore here in a minute.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
Here we go. Okay. So then this is the part that gets me excited.
Okay. So this is. Are we doing Team Ferrari now?
We're doing Team Ferrari now.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. So we're going to add Ferrari again. We're back. We cleared out the screen. Go online on your phone, on your computer. Get rid of everybody in your team. Don't hit save. It won't let you hit save. But don't hit save. Going to the drivers. Now, we're going to go Charles Leclerc. Oh, there we go. Well, come on. I promise I know how to work a mouse.
Carlos
Sainz.
Okay, so we got all the red.
I got all the red. We're going to go down to the bottom. We're going to have Logan, Joe, and Valtteri Bottas.
And so we got one constructor left, and we got $22.9 million.
And we can afford Mercedes.
Okay, here's why this matters. We were just talking about before, McLaren's the new hotness, right? They're doing great. They're on the rise. They're exciting. They've got these young drivers who are cooperating well. They've got bright futures ahead of them. The car's driving great. Why wouldn't you go with them? Because Charles Leclerc is cheaper, Sainz is cheaper, Ferrari is cheaper right now, and when you drink that red Kool-Aid, you have just enough money left to jump from Aston Martin, which had. Can we scroll down just a little bit?
Yep.
You go from Aston Martin, which has 184 points on the year. You have just enough money to go to the other green team, which is Mercedes, for $21.9 million, and you now have a second constructor that has 365 points
basically
on the season.
Double.
Even though they are disappointing from a purist F1 standpoint, even though they are not the Lewis Hamilton powerhouse that they were in years past, they are still the number 4 team in F1. So now you've got the number 2 team, the number 4 team, and both Ferrari drivers.
Yeah.
So this is the way to go.
And we're going to go ahead and drop Valtteri, because if we have that 1 million left, now we have 9. We can get Nico Hulkenberg.
Okay, and so now you've got a little a little bit of diversification among your cheaper drivers, which is a healthy thing. And again, Haas drivers have been doing good.
They have.
Kick Sauber's not doing great, but they generally aren't crashing. And then you got Logan Sargent, but still.
Yeah, Logan Sargent. and the thing is, as soon as Logan Sargent has put up good points, we will go.
He has.
Let's talk about him real quick.
For the money.
For Canada, -19, he DNF'd, got it. Monaco, he got 1, fine. Italy and United States, he was in the negative.
Okay, so to be fair, he's had a bad 6 weeks.
Bad 6 weeks.
But cumulatively, he's
got 0.
Which is okay for $5.9 million.
Especially if Logan Sargent is the biggest liability you have to take by getting all this, because as soon as you want anybody other than Logan Sargent, this build doesn't work. So let's get rid of everyone. And we have Mercedes, we have Ferrari, we have both Ferrari drivers. We're going to omit selecting Logan Sargent, going up from the bottom. Zhou Guanyu, Valtteri Bottas, and you can't take Alex Albon. And you wouldn't want to take Alex Albon.
And that's exactly it. That's what makes fantasy so squirrely compared to the rest to regular Formula One.
Yeah.
Is Alex Albon driving next year? Yes, he is. Is Logan Sargent probably done this year? Yes, he is. However, Logan Sargent's cheaper and less of a liability than Alex Albon from a fantasy perspective.
Yep.
So don't cringe when you get him on your team. That's not a bad thing.
No. So now here's the cool part. Here's the part that I really love about this, right? I am going to accept this, that this is the team that I'm going to have. So first off, you have your 3 teams in your lineup, right? So I'm going to backtrack. We're about to come right back to this. So now we're back to the main screen. You have your team 1, team 2, team 3.
Okay.
If you look at the leagues, the global league, so if you go to leagues, then go down to public leagues and starter leagues. The global league, this is the one that really truly matters. This is the one that as soon as you're in, no matter what country you're in this league.
Yep.
And this is the one that I personally have chosen as my metric of how well I'm doing.
Sure.
My first team is ranked 37,000 change. My third team is ranked 30,000 and change. My number 2 team is ranked 67,000 and change. So my number 2 team is doing substantially worse, in quotes, than all my other teams.
Yep.
And why? Well, because my best team is doing has 1,800 points. My second best team has 1,776 points. Third team is 1,704. So I'm basically 100 points off.
Yeah.
And that it dropped me that much. Why did that happen? Well, we can go back and look. And this isn't alibi time. This is me kind of explaining what went on. Let me go to completed weeks. Let's look at what happened.
In Canada.
Yeah. So my second team, I got 58 points because I was big into Ferrari and it dropped. And then the week before in Monaco, what did I do? I had both Haas drivers.
Oh, that's right.
I took 3 DNFs in Monaco. And don't get me wrong, I'm heavy into, I still believe in Haas.
Oh, sure.
But because that team 2 double tapped all those DNFs, my team 2 is substantially behind. All my teams hurting now? Yeah. Like my team 1 took 75 points, in Monaco, and the other team took 81. Like Monaco just sucked. But that stacked on top of Canada, that's why all this is going down with team 2. So there's that. So now back to the teams, back to race weekend. Okay. What I want to find some way to give an edge, right? I love this game. I love doing this. And the edge naturally comes with the chips. Yes. As we've talked about since the very beginning. You have your offensive and you have your defensive chips. You have your wild card that enables you to replace all your drivers regardless of your negative point penalties. You have your limitless, which allows you to replace all your drivers without your negative point penalties and eliminates your cost cap. But after your limitless, it reverts back to whatever your team was before.
I see. Okay.
And then you have your 3x, which gives you a 3x DRS instead of just your 2x, in addition to your 2x. But to use it right, you have to have 2 drivers worth adding your DRS to.
And that's exactly it. In most of these constructs, since you want to prioritize 2 strong constructors, it really nullifies the ability to use your 3X effectively.
Yeah.
So this is where this week is so crucial.
Mm-hmm.
And why, again, if you take nothing else away from this, go full Ferrari, because you can go full Ferrari and have another good constructor, and now you've got two good drivers where you can actually utilize. Okay, so real quick, so would you go 2X on Sainz, 3X on Leclerc, or would you switch that?
I would do 3X on Leclerc.
Okay,
and the reason why, just because he's doing better.
Yeah, and he's generally more consistent.
He's generally more consistent. They all got. Don't get me wrong. As soon as they get a double DNF, if we use the strategy, then both Ferraris get a double DNF next year.
Oh, for sure. But
then you're out.
Yeah, but again, I think Sainz is the more exciting driver, but Leclerc is going to be, he's your points leader.
And and then here's the trick. We need to get, as soon as we make this change now from a single driver, 2 strong constructor to a 2 driver, 1 strong, 1 Mercedes questionable.
Sure.
When do we make this change? We have to make this now. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to afford Ferrari. We're taking that as a given. So I came up with a spreadsheet because I love my spreadsheets. My wife gave me a mug that said, like this calls for a spreadsheet. Right, and I love this mug.
Oh, I thought you were going to do.
I should have had it.
Did you ever see the Excel spreadsheet one that says "freak in the sheets"?
No. Okay, that's awesome.
We'll get to that one.
So we're looking at it about chip. So we need to figure out the best way to utilize these chips. Right now, we can get Ferrari. Right now, is the time to make sure I'm organized. Right now is the time we've established to get both Ferrari and your Ferrari driver, your Ferrari constructor, and both Ferrari drivers.
Yes.
That means we can use the 3X.
Yes.
Which is good. But we also, so again, I want to make sure I'm saying this right. What circuit do we use it on, and when do we use it? Well, now we're kind of being forced to use it. Go ahead.
Oh, no, we may not be being forced to use it. Oh, wait, why are we being forced to use it?
We're not being forced to use it now. Sorry, that's the wrong word to use. We're not being forced to use it now, but we're being forced to adjust our team to this 2 strong constructor, 2 strong driver team.
Because it's the bargain bin.
Because this week only. Yeah, exactly.
Unless they double DNF again, which don't do that. But I know the answer to this.
Okay.
We don't use the 3X until it's a sprint race.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's where we're going.
Okay.
So you don't use your 3X until it's a sprint race. You don't use your limitless until it's a sprint race.
Correct.
Because that's the best time because you get more points.
And how many sprints do we have left on the season?
We have 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
So which sprint race do you use it with? And this is proprietary information, which you can get by looking at your screen right now. I came up with, I wanted to figure out what benefits the top constructors. The more turns and the fewer DRS zones, the more bunched up the track can get, the more chances people have to slow down and turn.
Oh.
It benefits the back of the pack because they can catch up to you.
That's right.
Because accidents can happen. Because whatever, that benefits other people. As soon as you have a Haas right next to Red Bull, what makes the Red Bull leave? What makes the Red Bull get away? Straightaways and DRS zones. If you have Sergio Perez coming from the back, give him and a Red Bull plenty of DRS, plenty of long straightaways, and few turns. That will benefit the faster cars over the slower ones.
And so, again, this is a beautiful moment right now. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie, A Beautiful Mind, with Russell Crowe, where he's doing all the chalk on the window panes.
Right.
And then, he identified, here's this key variable that we can identify and exploit. That's exactly what Paul's doing right now. He's having his Russell Crowe moment.
I'm loving every minute of it.
Hopefully without the schizophrenia. But
you never know.
No,
we're doing fine. No.
I promise I really am here. And,
okay, are you sure?
I mean, that's what his imaginary friends also said.
Right.
But
that's a very valid point.
No, I'll be your Paul Bettany. But no, this is great. So these are 2 identifiable and performance established benchmarks that demonstrate where words is hard.
Words is hard. I love it. No, that's what
but this is effectively demonstrating something that you can identify where it will be more effective to use your 3X because this is where that will make that difference.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
The next part of it is I have my spreadsheet. I have the number of turns in one column and the number of DRS zones in the next column.
Yes.
More DRS zones equal better. less turns equal better. In Spain, coming up this weekend, you have 14 turns, which is minimum. I think that's like one of the lowest. The lowest ever is around 16, and they have 11 turns.
I got one 10 in Austria.
Oh yeah, where's that at? We already happened to it, right?
Nope. Did we? No, we have go up. Right. 2 more. Oh, you went too far.
There's right there. Yeah, 10 in Austria. Yeah, cool. So 10 is the minimum. Usually they're around 14, 11, whatever. And Austria happens to be a sprint weekend.
Yes.
And Austria has 3 DRS zones.
Ooh.
So the Venn diagram is lining up. 3 DRS zones, only 10 turns, and sprint.
So high DRS,
low turns, sprint. And a sprint weekend. That is the time to use your limitless or use your chips. Round 11, not Spain, but the next weekend, is the round to use your chips.
Interesting.
All right?
Yeah.
So that's my deduction. So I'm going to go heavy. I'm not going to go all my drivers limitless, because as soon as I want to have one team that'll at least still be okay. I want to kind of do varying strategies, right?
Sure.
But so you have the limitless chip, but you also have the 3X chip. What do I want to do for the rest of the season? Because limitless, remember, reverts back.
Yes.
So if I want to have a team that's heavy Ferrari with Mercedes for the rest of the season, now is the time for me to be able to afford it.
Yep.
So lots of stuff working here, and I know some of the comments I've gotten online is like, dude, like unless you're a mathematician, I can't understand what the hell you're saying. What I'm saying is there's lots of stuff. So I'm going to reiterate: we want Mercedes. Sorry, we want Red Bull with Mercedes. Mm-mm. What am I talking about? Sorry. Okay, we want Ferrari.
Correct.
Ferrari constructor, both Ferrari drivers. We want Mercedes as the other constructor.
Yep.
This is the last time to be able to do it.
Mercedes is going to get better.
Mercedes is going to get better, and Ferrari is going to go back to their original value.
Correct.
And we want to have them for the rest going forward. Next week, not this coming race in Spain, but next week, we want to use our limitless chip. Or do we want to use our 3X chip? Exactly.
You know what?
I don't know. So Spain has 2 DRS zones, 14 turns, and it's not a sprint weekend.
I mean, 14 is still on the lower end.
Yeah.
You've got two solid drivers. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not a bad week to use your 3X. Not a bad
week to use. It's also not a bad week to use limitless. It's just not a sprint weekend where it has a max thing. So
limitless, you can choose whoever you want, right?
So limitless, you can choose absolutely whoever you want to do on it. You can pick anybody you want, so you can fill in your slots with all Ferrari, all whoever. There's no cost cap.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So, and this is where the strategy kind of comes in for you and me.
Yeah.
If you're looking at this screen that we've had here, I can go ahead if we make this. So we've already agreed that we need to make this decision now. If I use the limitless chip for, I want to make sure I say this right. I want to go back to where's my screen. So right now we have to make this. Okay. See, this is normally we would go ahead and stop and then restart this recording, but we're not going to do that.
Because we're also recording the screen right now.
We're also recording the screen, so we're going to keep everything sunk up.
Yeah.
So, do we use, if we were to use limitless now, this is what I was trying to go for. Sorry, I knew I was getting it. If we were to use limitless now for this week, that's a strong week to use limitless, right? You have 14 turns, you have 2 DRSs.
Yeah.
Next week, when we want Ferrari to go 3X at the Australian Grand Prix,
which has the sprint,
which has a sprint, which has a fewer turns, which has more DRS zones, we couldn't afford them because their value is going to go back up.
Correct.
So we need to buy them now.
Okay, so yeah, so we do that. We lock in the team now.
Lock in the team now,
and then hit limitless.
So let's go ahead and lock in the team now.
Okay.
I'm doing this real time. So there we have the new team. There's
no, we don't.
Nope, sorry, we don't have it. Sorry, that's why. Okay, there you go. Thank you. So we're going to get rid of all these cats. I'm going to go ahead and move Ferrari over there just because I enjoy my add constructor. I like my symmetry. We're going to add Carlos Sainz. Then we're going to come down here. We're going to evaluate. Come all the way down. We're going to add Logan Sargent, Joe Gagnon, and then we're going to add Nico Hulkenberg. And then we're going to come back into constructor and add Merck. 0.2 million out.
Yep.
Does this look right?
It does. Continue.
Continue. Now let's look at this. This is where I'm going with this. We have one too many, for my build, we have one too many trades.
I mean, take the 10-point hit.
Take the 10-point hit?
Yes.
I completely agree. Confirm change. I just took our 10-point hit. Now we're negative 10. Now here is the next part of this question. This is why I was kind of stuttering through a minute. Thank you for staying with me if you guys did. Do we use the 3X chip this week, assuming they're going to be good? Or do we use the Limitless chip this week to erase that negative 10-point debt and throw in McLaren and all of that in here? Because right now, if we were to, we just change it. So this is going to be what it's going to revert back to.
Sure.
After the Limitless. We could, on what we just did, add Limitless, add McLaren, both McLaren drivers, and Max Verstappen for this Spain coming up, and then have it revert back and use the 3X for the Austrian Grand Prix.
I say, I would say we do that. I hadn't considered the negating of the negative 10-point.
But we're using Limitless the week before. We're negating a 10-point, and we can use all these drivers on a strong circuit, and then use the 3X for the Austrian.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the way to go. Because on a sprint week, we have talked multiple times about how different constructors prioritize the sprint weekend differently, and this is kind of the chance for some of those lower tier constructors to score some extra points.
Yeah.
So yes, everyone's racing, everyone's in it, everyone's giving their best ish, but this, there's going to be a lot of strategy involved with tire selection, prevailing circumstances there. So they're still going to have their eyes on the Grand Prix prize, not the sprint prize. So you can't rely, I don't think, as much on consistent performance across all of your heavy hitter Limitless drivers on a sprint week. I think you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck with the team that we just selected, and 3Xing those few reliable performers that we have selected there. So this week Spain would be the week to go Limitless.
Yeah.
Just because I think there's going to be a lot more you can count on in terms of those higher end drivers that you're going to be able to have access to.
And you do cover off your bets a little bit, because so many people are bringing in upgrades. Right now, Ferrari had a really rough weekend. If I keep Ferrari now, but I bring in McLaren, then as soon as Ferrari has a mediocre weekend, while they're getting their feet back under them, McLaren does well, there we go.
Sure.
No,
absolutely. So, quick question.
Yeah.
If you do go Limitless this week, are you dropping Mercedes and taking McLaren, or are you taking Red Bull?
I'm dropping Mercedes and taking McLaren.
Okay.
For the Limitless.
Correct.
Yeah, so I'm dropping Mercedes, absolutely.
Yes. So then are you going 2 McLaren drivers and McLaren as a constructor as well? Or are you going Red Bull and Red Bull and Red Bull?
I am going to apply. So some people might ask real quick, why not use your wild card to get it in? You could, but I'm going to before I answer your question, I'm going to harken us back to this little thing. And this is a very valid thing we're going to discuss here. So as soon as we get, the last 3 sprints, once you get that late in the season, it's pretty well established, and you get teams stop putting money into their cars, stop bringing upgrades.
I have to step away for a second. Yeah? You keep talking.
Okay, cool. So as soon as you focus, or you want to put your money in on some of the last sprints of the weekend, some of the last sprints of the season, right? So round 19, you have a sprint race. 21, you have a sprint race. 23, you have a sprint race, and then you're done after Abu Dhabi in round 24. The issue with saving a lot of your boosts and a lot of your chips around then is sometimes you'll come into it where people are just kind of done fighting. They're just not worried about it anymore. They know they're not going to place higher than whatever. They know the constructor or the driver championships out of their reach, so they start putting money into next year's car. And my worry is, as soon as I wait to do all of this DRS stuff and all this, use the 3X, use the Limitless and things like that until round 19 or 21, you run the risk of just not having the team be there. And if you look ahead to round 19, they have 20 turns. Well, that's 6 more turns than Spain and double the turns as Austria. So we don't want that. And then you go on to round 21, and sure, there's 15 turns, and there's 2 DRS zones. That's still more than Spain. That's still 50% more than Austria. And that is so close to the end of the season, a lot of stuff might be kind of sorted out by then. And then Qatar, which is fine, but there's only 1 DRS zone, and there's 16 turns. So those last 2 sprint weekends, I feel, are kind of weak. So the 19th, the second to last, the third to last, and the very last sprint weekends, I think, are weak. As soon as you are looking at round 21, and it's not bad, but at that point, as soon as Ferrari or McLaren is like, hey, the championship's not in our reach, we're gonna stop evolving our car. We're gonna stop evolving our strategy, and we're just gonna take the 3rd place or the 4th place, whatever. Then there's a chance that that's not what we're looking for. There's a chance that it will get diminishing returns at that point. So it means that this round 11 is going to be the last, for sure, big chance when you have all these constructors pushing for it. And this is the perfect time for you to come back, because I'll skip to the punchline. Right now, we have 3 strong constructors. We have Red Bull, we have McLaren, we have Ferrari, and now we have Mercedes. Everybody's in the gunfight. Everybody is trying to be in the top.
Yep.
As soon as we get to the bottom part of the season, round 19 has 20 turns. We don't want to. That's way too many. We're not going to worry about that. That's a sprint weekend. Round 21 has 15 turns, 2 DRS zones, which is strong, but that's so close to the end of the season. As soon as I know, that's in the zone where people are already starting to put money into next year, and they're not bringing new developments now.
Yep.
So, to that, looking back up to all this, do I want to take that negative 10 points? I really don't. So, do we use wildcard to do it? We can, but then that negates that 10 points. But we also want to be able to, if Ferrari takes a dump in a little bit, we want to be able to get rid of them. And wild card is permanent, limitless isn't.
Oh, interesting. That's right.
Yeah.
It's kind of a 1 week.
It's a 1 week thing. So I'm personally, with this strategy, going to flip-flop what I have here and take limitless this weekend.
Yes.
And then have split my strategies and have in Austria, one team is going 3x, the other team is going limitless. So let me go like that. So then we're going to head back to here. We're going to apply the limitless chip. Are you sure you want to? Yeah, we do.
Do it.
You can't ever undo it. Yep, fine. So now we just applied limitless. Now you have to actually make the changes to your team in order to keep the limitless chip. Right now, if I were to backtrack, limitless would go away. Let's demonstrate that real quick. So we backtrack, see it's opting up. We're going to not confirm. Okay, cool.
Great.
So I'm going to get rid of all these dudes. I'm going to bring in McLaren. And then I'm going to go back to here, get Max, get Lando Norris, and get Oscar.
Cool.
And then continue. And then, do you sure want to do this? Yes. So now, what have we done? Now I have my limitless team. I'm stacked with the best people available. And next week, it's going to revert back to a Ferrari heavy. So as soon as Ferrari does really well, and their prices all jump $1 million each.
And potentially Mercedes jumps up.
And potentially Mercedes jumps up. As soon as they do well, then I can afford a team that I couldn't otherwise afford.
Correct.
And it's still a little bit of questions. So as soon as they do take a huge dump, or as soon as Mercedes gets a double DNF, or as soon as it's like, hey, guess what? All the stuff they brought last week was just a fluke.
Yep.
I do still have my wild card. And since I will still have since this week I use the limitless, and next week I use the 2x. If for some reason all that doesn't pay out, then the third week I'll have 3 changes I can do to move around without using my wild card. So this podcast has been a lot more stumbling and stammery than I thought it was going to be.
No, it's worth it to talk through this stuff.
And so here is the next thing I'm thinking about doing that you and I haven't talked about is, do I do the exact same thing except opposite strategy and use McLaren with Aston Martin for Team 3. Because I'm just going to poke around with this one real quick, and this one will be a lot shorter than the other one was. So this one has 111.8, still similar.
Yep.
If we go both McLaren, we go drivers, we go there, we have 38 million. Let's go ahead and get those cheap drivers. Logan, boom, Valtteri. And we can't afford Mercedes.
No.
So we go Aston.
So I mean, so it becomes identical to
the other one.
So here's what I would recommend.
Yeah.
Again, I know we're trying to wrap up. We're like 53 minutes in here. Let's, we get to have 3 teams try a litmus test. Right now, we've got Team 1, which is Team McLaren all the way. We've got Team Ferrari all the way. What if we went back to kind of the older tried and true method where we have 2 strong constructors? Let's go Ferrari and McLaren.
Okay.
And then we have a quick discussion of who is our one big reliable driver, or do we do? Can you do Ferrari and McLaren and a Ferrari and a McLaren driver?
Ooh, let's try that. So yeah, here's my Team 3. My Team 1 I'm keeping as is.
Okay.
Right now, and so there's those drivers. Let's get rid of all these. So we have Ferrari, McLaren. Let's go with the top ones. Let's go with Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz.
That's going to be a challenge.
That's 14 million.
We know right off the bat you can't do that. So let's try
Carlos Sainz and Oscar Piastri. Yep. The next 2 down.
You've got $20.5 million to spend across 3 drivers. Can we do it?
Can we do it? We have value. Go down here. 1, 2. Nope.
Oh,
can't do it.
No.
Just missed.
Okay, that's
just
frustrating.
Missed. That's a bummer. So then the question is, then how good of a second driver can we get?
So let's do this. How much is Sergio Perez?
Ooh, Sergio Perez is more expensive than Carlos Sainz and Oscar Piastri.
Okay, so that doesn't work.
That doesn't work at all.
Okay, so we go on down. We got Lewis Hamilton at 21.4. We know that's still not quite enough.
How much are we missing? We're missing.
We have 7 million.
1 million.
We have to find $1 million.
Find $1 million somewhere.
Okay,
so then we can go ahead and George Russell looks like is where it goes. Drop Oscar. Or George Russell.
Dude's got 148 points. It's not a terrible number 2 driver.
If you want to have enough. Still, that's shy of us by 0.2.
You're right. We're not good at math.
Yeah.
Okay, who costs $19 million?
See,
it's gonna be disappointing. This is the problem. It's a huge drop off.
So,
where's Fernando?
Fernando Alonso, 16.7.
But look at the point drop. You go from 148 points at George Russell to 91 points for Fernando Alonso. And again, love Fernando, but
here's Charles Leclerc. We'll get him. So we can get Charles Leclerc and Fernando Alonso with both McLaren and Ferrari.
That's not bad, but it's not nearly as sexy as you'd want it to be.
No. And again, these guys are both an issue is, and we haven't discussed this, is since all the points are a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
The better, now that you have McLaren, Ferrari, and Max Verstappen and Red Bull all fighting for those top spots, it's going to be real easy to basically all the value, now that you have, especially now that you're getting Mercedes up there, but now that McLaren's in there, the value of everybody goes down because all the points everyone else is going to be bringing.
Right. Well, drop Valtteri for Yuki Tsunoda. And then that way you're...
Yuki Tsunoda, there you go. Yeah. We can do that.
That's
I bet
not bad.
We might be able to drop Logan for Valtteri? No. I was hoping we could do that. Yeah, no.
Yeah, you can't.
Can't do that.
But that's not a bad team.
It's not.
You've got 2 solid constructors. You've got a driver that's consistent with one of your constructors, so you're going to double up on the points there.
Mm-hmm.
Fernando Alonso, you could do a lot worse. But again, he's just that pitfall of that middle of the road fantasy driver that it's not going to be worth the money.
And he loves those, and I love him as a driver because he's always gambling, he's always pushing, he's taking the alternate strategies, he's taking the race to Verstappen. He knows, like it was one of the races recently, everyone else is like, oh, we're on hards or mediums and we're gonna keep it going. He's like, nah, I'll throw softs on and we'll make Max Verstappen beat me.
Yeah.
And he did.
Yeah.
But still, like I love it, and as soon as his gambles had paid off more, then he'd be an easy win. If he had gotten maybe another, how many points does he have now? He has 91 points. As soon as he was up there with George Russell, as soon as he had another 40, 50 points on him, he'd be front and center on a lot of the teams, I think.
Oh, for sure.
But he just hasn't. So I'm not going to pull the trigger necessarily on this one yet.
Sure. Because
my thoughts are, you have that Ferrari team that we just had, and as soon as you have this McLaren heavy team, that has to have Valtteri on it, then we have to come in here and we have to have Aston Martin.
Yeah, and this all filters back to when you're playing this game. Are you trying to have 3 competitive teams, or do you have one team that you really truly want to be competitive, and then the other one is your Jekyll and kind of Jekyll and Hyde. Let's put some liquid paper on a bee and see what happens.
And I guess the point is well made that we made before. If you really want McLaren to do, if you really want to have, like, we are 0.2 million away from being able to afford to have a McLaren-centric team, period, with any sort of constructor that's even marginal. So now, after one more race, as if Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri place in the top 3, the value of McLaren, Oscar, and Lando are all going to go up enough, and you'll have to go to Williams or something to be able to afford it. You'll have to be down to Haas or Alpine to be able to afford this setup. Mm-hmm. So if you want it, this is one of the last weekends to be able to afford it as well.
And this is where Aston Martin is such a frustrating player, across both constructors and drivers. It's like, look at all 10 constructors as like a set of nunchucks. On one end you've got your top 3 teams, and then there's this drop off, top 4 teams, and then you got this chain link right here. This is Aston Martin, and then you've got your lower constructors, and there's just this gap between them, and Aston Martin's on their own little island. It's so weird.
It's
So
this is what we're looking at right now. And I'm just going to go and revert back to whatever I had before. So this is my last team. The team we're just messing around with, my team 3, is the last team I have with Max Verstappen. Because he's doing fine, 37, 13, 35. He's not doing bad the last 3 races with 40 in the United States.
Oh, not at all. He's still Max.
But the problem is, as soon as you look at Charles Leclerc, again, last week notwithstanding, Max is about comparable, maybe a little bit more.
Correct.
So is that worth the difference? I think he's still on. That's my Max team. I have my Max team, I have my Norris team, both of those, and then I have my Charles Leclerc team, and the Charles Leclerc team has all Ferrari, Max team has Ferrari, McLaren, and Ferrari, McLaren for the Norris team.
Yep. And
this is where I'm at going forward. And so I'm going to run the Limitless right now, and then I'm going to run the 3X next week
in Austria.
And I might go ahead and do another thing where I'm running like a McLaren. Ooh, let me check this team. I know I keep adding stuff on here, but as soon as we were to get rid of Esteban Ocon and these 2 Haas drivers, and then add Oscar Piastri, then I still don't think. See, I missed it by 4 million. So then if you drop Ferrari, I think I'm just missing Mercedes. I'm missing it by 1.1 million.
Gotcha. So anyway, we can continue to go down the rabbit hole here, but we've crossed the 1 hour mark. If you've stuck with us, thank you for doing that. But you've definitely, again, if you have stuck with us, you've definitely gotten a very interesting one-time only inside track on how to attain Ferrari and Mercedes and make it all work for you. And this week, and again, if you're following along all the details, you've got your next 2 weeks laid out for you in a way that could pay off in an insane way. So
unless it rains and then everyone just crashes again.
Oh, I mean, you never know what's going to happen, but in as much as you can calculate this out, it has been calculated out. I think it's going to be very exciting over the next 2 weeks, both in terms of how we've applied the chips, how the sprint weekends work out, how these teams continue to evolve from Ferrari bouncing back to McLaren continuing to do better and better to Mercedes re-entering the fight. There's a lot to watch for, and so we'll rejoin you after we get back from Spain. We're not literally going to Spain, but after we get back from watching Spain on our TVs, and.